Hey everyone, my name is Neil and welcome back to my channel, and today we're going to be designing a garden bed using Fusion 360. Now today's design is super special. This garden bed actually comes from another fellow woodworker and my friend Deandra over at Workbootsandglasse, which is her handle, and I cannot say enough about her as a woodworker. She does some amazing work. The product that she turns out is next level. And she takes custom furniture orders for her woodworking business as well. So if you guys need a cabinet, dining table, coffee table, any of that stuff made, a garden bed, go ahead and reach out to her and she'll be more than happy to help you with your request. So I'm going to be dropping the link down to her IG and TikTok down in the video description if you guys want to check her out. Again, you will not be disappointed. So when I was scrolling through TikTok and Instagram and saw that this garden bed was there, I decided to reach out to her and ask her if she wouldn't mind me designing this in this video. To my great joy, she agreed. So here we are, we're going to be working on this garden bed. It's going to be 24.25 inch in height. The length is going to be 8 feet or 96 inches, and the depth is going to be 36 inches. Also, the whole point of this video series is for you guys to be able to download the software Fusion 360 with me and go step by step and learn how to design your own woodworking projects so that you can become more proficient. Also, if you guys have something you would like to see me design, go ahead and drop it down in the comments and I'll make it in another future video if I can. All right, let's get started. Okay guys, so here we are at the computer. Right now we're in Fusion 360, and as you can see, we already have practice sped up that we mentioned earlier. This thing's going to be 24 1/8 of an inch in height. The length of it's going to be 96 inches or 8 feet, and then the depth from here to here is going to be 36 inches. So to start our build, we're going to work on the depth, then we'll worry about the height, then we'll worry about the length. So we're going to create a new design. So we're going to click here, and if you want to flip to the old design, you can see here they have two tabs just like an internet browser. And then we're going to show our plane. So in 3D modeling, you should start your sketch on a plane or close to the origin, something that you have in order to reference. So if we come over here to the feature tree, which we have on the left-hand side, you could see here when we click the eyeball, it shows us the planes. So we have XY plane, XZ plane, and YZ plane. Now you'll hear me say YZ or ZY. It doesn't really matter for me. They're interchangeable. So the first thing we want to do is we want to go and construct, or sorry, we want to assemble new component, and we're going to call that first component the front and back wall. Okay, so here in our feature tree, you could see right here on the left side, it says front and back wall, and we're going to take advantage of that. So if we hide, this is for the main assembly, and we're just right now going to focus on the front and back wall. So we're going to put our first plane using this components Z plane. So here, when we come to construct, we're going to go on the offset plane option, and then we need to offset a plane. So we're just going to zoom out here, and then we're going to click the XZ plane. And once we click there, you can see now a plane is there and the option to drag it is there. So we're just going to drag it this way. You can also go the other way, but for this, we're just going to do this way. And we said that this was going to be 36 inches in width. So we're going to do half of that. And the reason why we're doing half is because we're going to put our first plane down, which is here. We're going to sketch our features. And then we're going to take advantage of this central plane, and we're going to do our geometry here, and then we're going to mirror it around this plane, and we'll end up with the same geometry there because this whole thing is symmetric. So you don't have to sketch the features for this side and then again sketch the features for this side. That's kind of a waste of time. You can do that, but you can just do it once, take advantage of the center plane, and then mirror it around. Same thing on the right side. You can do it once, take advantage, and mirror it around. You'll see as we go. So Fusion 360, like any other software, crashes, so you need to make sure that you save. So we're going to hit the save button, and then we're going to call this garden bed, and then we're going to click save. Okay, so now we have a save V1, and we're going to sketch our first wall, which we're calling our front wall. So we're going to come over here and we're going to click create sketch. and it's going to ask for a sketch plane to put that sketch on, and we're going to put on the plane that we just created. So we're going to click this right here, and then it'll put us in that mode. We don't need this for right now, so we're just going to move that palette over. So here we are, we're in the plane, and you can move it around. This is our original plane, and then this is the offset plane that we have. So we can click on the front plane again and go normal to it. And so the first thing we're going to be doing right now is we're going to be drawing our first piece of lumber right here. And just to note that I put a 1/8 gap in between all of these planks, basically, just to allow for wood movement and expansion during the summer and the winter months. So here we're going to draw that first plank, and we're going to come over here to our create, and we're going to click the drop down to rectangle, because that's what it is. Most of the world is either a rectangle, triangle, or a circle. That's in the world of design. And then we're going to click center rectangle. So now that we've clicked that option for center rectangle, you could see that we have that toggle on. And you always want to try to sketch off of the origin if you can. And right here, this center point is the origin. It's our 0, 0 mark in 3D space. It's basically giving you a nice reference point to plot off of. So here we can click right there, place the center point, and then we can just drag. And all we did was left click there. And now we're not holding or doing anything. We're just dragging the mouse. And you can see at the bottom that you see 64 inches, 58 inches, 32 inches. We're just going to drop it, and then we'll worry about dimensioning it later. So this seems like a good space to stop. Same thing on the left side. You could see if I move up, it goes to 24, and if I drop down, it goes to 8. So let's just drop it at 6 for now. And that's our first plank. So the hard part for that is done, and now all we have to do is dimension it. When it's blue like this, you can still move it up and down, which is not what you want. You want to be able to constrain the part in space. So you need to not only tell the software where you want it to be in position, but you also need to let it know what the dimensions need to be for that particular geometry. So here we're going to go to Sketch Dimension, and we're going to click on the top and the bottom line. And basically we're going to call these 2x8s. So each plank is a 2x8. And as you know, if you spend a lot of time woodworking, that a 2 by anything is actually 1.5 inch in thickness. And an 8 inch means that's going to be 7.5 inch. So we need to keep that in mind. So for our height, our first plank is going to be 7.5 inches. So 7.5. And as you see there, now we have that dimension. So we shouldn't be able to move it up and down. If we drag this line, you can see it's solid, but we haven't given it a length, so we can still move this in and out. So same thing, we want to click on our dimension tool, sketch dimension, left line, right line, and then we want to go ahead and just left click here so it drops in space. And then here we have an option. It's asking us what we want it to be. And you can zoom in and out just by using the center mouse button. So here I'm zooming in and I'm zooming out. And so, and if you want to move the whole piece side to side, you just hold the center mouse button and drag to the right, drag to the left, drag to the right, drag to the left. So that's how you pan, zoom in and out. And if you want to rotate in Fusion, you hold the shift button and you hold the middle button on the mouse, and that's how you rotate the part. So those are the 3 commands that you're going to use a lot. So here we said that our planks were going to be 8 feet long. So you could either type in 8 feet or 96 inches. For us, we're just going to type in 96 inches in here. So now everything is black. If you noticed, if we go back, or if we delete this dimension, that the sides are blue, you could still move it, which means the part's not fully constrained. But when we give it a dimension of 96, the sides will turn to black. And here now it's fully defined. You can't drag it. You've locked it in space. So we're going to clean this up and move this just over. So here is our first plank. So that's done. And now we need to create 2 more. So we created our middle one, and we're going to create the top and bottom, but we're not going to do that exercise again, we're just going to use a rectangular pattern. We're going to take advantage of our existing geometry. And you'll see that throughout this design build is that we do a lot of taking advantage of the geometry that we already have. So as I mentioned, in between each plank, there's an 1/8 of an inch gap. So we need to take that into account when we do a rectangular pattern. So here I'm going to go to create. I'm going to go down to rectangular pattern. And once we click on that option, it's asking for objects to do the rectangular pattern. So we're going to click the top edge, the left edge, the bottom edge, and then we're going to click the right edge. So now you see here it has a quantity of 3 and it's asking for a direction. So you can, this right arrow is signifying that that's going to be for this top part. And so we are more interested in the bottom part. So we selected the edges that we want to do a rectangular pattern. And now if we grab this arrow and just move it slightly up, you could see here that you are seeing an outline, a silhouette of our rectangular part. You actually see 3 of them. Okay, so remember we did the middle part, but we could have easily called that the bottom and then just moved these up and given it a dimension of -24. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the width of our plank, which is 7.5, and let me pull up a calculator. We're going to take the width of our plank, which is 7.5, plus that 1/8 inch gap that we have for the expansion and contraction. So it's going to be 7.5 and 1/8. Here we can do the math. 1 divided by 8 is actually 0.125. So 1 divided by 8, 1/8 of an inch is 0.125 plus the 7.5 for the plank. So we need to do a rectangular pattern of 7.625. So we're going to copy that, and that's the number that we're going to put in here for our distance. And we're going to put in 7.625, which lets us know where we want to put it. And instead of doing one direction, because right here you can see that you have an overlapping, you're going to do a symmetry. And what the symmetry is going to do is it's going to put one plank above and one plank below because it needs to make it look symmetric. So here, now that we put symmetric, you could see that you have a gap here of 1/8 of an inch for your top plank, and then you have a gap of 1/8 of an inch for your bottom plank. And we don't need to make, the other top one is for the direction going to the right and left, but we're more concerned with the top and bottom. So now that we know we have 7.625 to give us a 1/8 inch gap, we're going to click OK. And just like that, you can see that you have that clearance right here. And sorry if I keep zooming in and out the wrong way. I've been in a completely different software all day, so which has different controls. But if we want to check that, we can do it right now. We can grab our sketch dimension and just make this a reference dimension. We can grab the top, we can grab the bottom, and you can see right there, yes, do you want to create a driven? You could see that the gap between the top and bottom is 0.125 right there. And same thing, if you grab this plank, you could see right here, same thing. Or you don't have to drop a dimension. You can click the inspect tool and click this line and this line and see that the distance between them is also 1/8 of an inch. So that's perfect. That's exactly what we wanted. And if we wanted to get a reference of how tall our first wall is without our apron around it, we can also go ahead and hit the sketch dimension, click the top line, click the bottom line, and you could see, yes, create driven. You could see that right now the height is 22.75. Okay, so now that that's over, we can go ahead and we've created the 3 planks that we want. We can go ahead and click finish sketch. So if we rotate this, hold the shift button and the middle mouse button, you could see that you've created the geometry for your first wall. And this is what we're going to do 4 or 5 times over. And it's as simple as that. It doesn't require much. You just need to get your first geometry and then you could rectangular pattern that. So remember when we did a 18-inch offset from the center plane? It's so that we could take advantage of the mirror function. But before we do that, we can hide this plane again. And every time we add a feature to the tree, it's here so that we can adjust and make changes in the future if we want to, as well as it ends up down here in case you want to edit it as well. So it's keeping a history of everything we do, every change. So we made our plane first, and then we made our sketch. Now we're going to give this sketch some geometry. So we're going to come back over here and we're going to extrude these three sketches, or this one sketch, these three different pieces of geometry right here that we're going to extrude. So we're going to click on extrude. And now it's asking us to select a profile. So we have these three different profiles. So we're just going to start at the top, and I'm going to rotate it so that you can clearly see it. We're going to go the top. We're going to click on the middle. And each time here, it tells us that we've selected two profiles, or we can stop that. But let's do it one more time. Profiles, top, middle, bottom. So now that those three profiles are selected, we're going to do it to one side and we're going to go this way. This arrow is here so you can drag it up, or you can do a distance. I'll show you what it's like when we drag it. We can make our wall this long. We can make it go this way, anything we want. But because we want to be 36 inches in depth, we already put this at 18 inches. So we don't want to go this way, because if we extrude it this way, our part would be 18 inches plus 8 inches here, or it would be 18 inches plus 10 inches, right? So we'd have 28 inches. That means we would have 56 if we doubled that up to go to the other side, and we don't want to do that. So we want to make sure we extrude this way. And we said that we were going to be doing 2x8s. So if the width is 7.5, then, or the height is 7.5, then the width of that 2x8 must be 1.5 inches. So we're going to do 1.5 inch. So there we go. As you can see, we have a wall and we have our 2x8. And same thing, you can click on inspect. You can click on this side. You can rotate, hold shift and the middle mouse button and click on this side and see that you have a thickness of 1.5 inch, which lets you know that you have the right dimensions for 2x8. And here it's 7.5. So that's exactly what we wanted. So we created our first wall. Congratulations. And here over on the tree, if we click this bodies, we now have body 1, body 2, body 3. And so you can do a hide on any of them. You could hide body 2, which is your centerpiece. You can hide body 3, or you can hide all the bodies and none of them will show up. Or you can go back to the assembly and click here and activate it, and you have everything in view. So right now we only have basically one wall. So it doesn't matter if you're in the assembly or if you're activated just the front wall, you'll see the same thing. It'll be once we add more parts, you'll see a difference. So here, if I go back and activate the component, which is the front wall, we can now use the front wall to create the back wall. So we can do two things. We could either take a plane, put it 18 inches over here, draw a sketch, do these three components, a rectangular pattern, and do an extrude again. But that's like another 4 or 5 steps. That's unnecessary. Instead, we can take advantage and just use this geometry and mirror that around the center plane, our XZ plane, and copy that and make that our back wall. And I'll show you right now. We're going to use a mirror command. So we're going to go to create, we're going to go to mirror, and then it's asking for bodies. And so we're going to select body 1, body 2, body 3. Now you could also mirror a component, but for right now, we're just going to leave it at bodies. So you have body 1, body 2, and body 3. And it's asking, once you've selected the bodies that you want to mirror, and we'll zoom out so we could see here, you're going to click on mirror plane. And once you click on mirror plane, you need to select the plane that you want to mirror this around. So we're going to click this ZX plane there. And as you can see right there, it creates a back wall. exactly like our front with the exact distance away. Now you see why we did the plane of 18 inches. So here we're going to say we want you to mirror this geometry about that plane, these bodies on this plane, and we want you to create new bodies. And you could see here on the left before I click OK, you have body 1, body 2, body 3. I expect that once we hit OK, we're going to have body 4, which will represent the top, body 5, which will represent the middle, and body 6, which will represent the bottom. So once we clicked OK, you have body 4, 5, and body 6. And now if you look, you can see and you rotate around, you have your front wall and you have your back wall. And if you go ahead and hit the inspect tool and measure, you can hit inspect. You can touch this wall with the left mouse, hold shift, hold the middle mouse button, rotate around, zoom in and touch this wall with the left mouse click. And you can see there that you have a distance of 36 inches, which we said that we were going to make the depth of our bed 36 inches. So that's the advantage of taking your first plane and offsetting it over here to the left to make sure that you have the distance that you want. And it takes some forethought. It's not something that I expect you to get on your very first time. I've been doing this for years. I've been 3D modeling since I was 18. So I have some years in the game. Um, and so the more you 3D model, the more you'll think about the ways to set things up. And this is kind of how you want to do it. And if you're using Fusion, if you're using Onshape, if you're using SolidWorks, CATIA, it doesn't matter. All of these softwares, the buttons are slightly different. They're different names, but the methodology is more or less the same. You want to create a sketch, put some geometry in there, and then ultimately have a final product. So now that we have our front and back walls, we are going to now create a new component and create our left and our right walls. And here, let's say if you're rotating around and you get stuck, if you move over to the top over here, you could always click the home button and then it'll put it back in a nice isometric view. And then you can start from there. And remember to rotate, hold the shift and the center button. So now let's go ahead and do our left wall, which we're going to take advantage of our existing geometry and we're going to sketch on this face or we're going to put a plane on this face because this is already there. And we know that when we are doing our building, we're going to be using the geometry, right? You're not going to put your plank in space. You're going to level it on one of these pieces and then take a screw or a nail and hit it against it. So we're going to do more or less the same thing here. We're going to go to um, construct, and we're going first, before we do any of that, we want to put in another new component. So here we did front, back. If you go back to the assembly, you could see that. And now we want to go to assemble new component. And we're going to call this component left right wall. Okay, so here in our tree, you could see that that got added. If I go ahead and close up the front back tree, you could see here on the left, we have our left right wall. And this is what I said, when you have more parts that you're adding, you're going to see some differences. So when you've activated the left right component, you see how now this turns to translucent. You can go back to the front back wall and this will be in focus and this will turn translucent. And then when you activate the component, everything will be come back into focus. So you'll see that after we add this. I'll show you what it looks like. So here, if we go back and activate the left right wall, we can see that we have our planes that are centered around the origin, but we're not going to be using them. We're going to put a plane on this face. You don't have to, you can sketch directly on this plate on this face, but I prefer to put the plane. So we're going to go to offset plane. We're going to click this face, or you can click this face, or you can click this face. It doesn't matter which one you click. We're just going to start with the one on the top left there, and it's asking for an offset distance. We're going to say 0 because we want our plane to be directly on this face. So now that it is, we can go ahead and sketch on that plane, or you can do it without the plane. It's up to you. Let's go ahead and do it without the plane, just so that I don't add extra complexity. I'll show you in another design video what it's like to do it with the plane. So here, now that our plane is just hidden, we're not going to sketch on it. We're going to click on that face, and we're going to click Create Sketch. The reason why I like to use the plane is because it's more robust. If I make a change to this face and it gets too bad, then it's going to be a lot harder to fix it because we're sketching directly on the face. Whereas if we sketch on the plane, even if it's linked to the face, it's going to be a lot more robust when it comes to updating this model. So I'm going to bypass the plane for now and sketch directly on this face, and then click Create Sketch. And once you do that, it puts it back in normal view of this face. It's highlighted here. So now we want to put our walls for our left, which are going to go from here to here, I believe. So if we look at our existing one, you could see how the planks that are on the left or right are in front or inside of our outer planks. They're not overlapping. So we're going to do the same thing. Now, we can spend time and do what we did in the first part and create a rectangular feature and put in 7.5 and rectangular pine and all that. Or we can take use of the geometry that we already have and do a rectangular pattern. So we're just going to click on a 2-point rectangle this time, and we're going to click just randomly here, and we're going to click here, and we're going to use our feature, our constraints right here in order to take advantage of that. So I just dropped the rectangle in space. It is in no way constrained. You can move it around, but we're going to try to lock it using a few constraints. So first we're going to click on coincidence, and we're going to click on, and this coincidence space, think of it as kind of like super glue, or it's snapping something together saying, hey, I want this point to go to this point. And once you do that, you'll see how it snaps together. So we're going to say we want this point to go to this point, and it snaps. Okay. And then we're going to say we want this point to go to this point right there. And as you can see, with just clicking here and here, it defines the full geometry because you only need 2 points to lock it into space right now. And once you have those 2 points, it's done. We have done the top plank, and we can now do a rectangular pattern. We can repeat what we did in the first bit, and I'll show you what that looks like. So if we delete this, I'll show you what it looks like. You can, in the first time we did this, we used a center rectangle, and I'll show you what that looks like instead. So here, if we click on the origin, we place a center point, and same thing, we just drop this in a random area. Go ahead and delete that point. We drop this in a random area. We can do the same thing with the constraints. We can go coincident, this point and this point snap together. And because it's a center rectangle, you only have to do it once, and it automatically knows that this and this are on the same plane. So now that you did that one click and it snapped everything together, you can now do that rectangular pattern again. And so you're going to go to rectangular pattern. You're asking for objects. You're going to click 1, 2, 3, 4. Let me just do this one more time. I don't want to go too quickly because I know that this is going to be one of the first times some people are seeing this, and I want to make sure that it looks correct. So just to reiterate one more time, if you want to do a easy use of the geometry to make your next planks, you can go to Create, Rectangle, Center Rectangle. You can click the origin right there, and you can just drop it in a random spot right there. And because you did a center rectangle with just one click, you can tell this point to snap to this point right here. Sorry, it's a little far away. This point right here on the middle plank, these 2 points. And by doing that, it'll constrain the entire rectangle. So if I click coincident and I zoom into here on this plank and click that corner and zoom out so you could see and click this corner, you could see it snaps, and that's exactly what we wanted. We can't move it now. And then we're going to use a rectangular pattern. We're going to select these objects, 1, 2, 3, 4. Same thing, it's going to be our second direction, which is down here, and we're going to drag it up. Okay, and since we did that, all we have to do now is go with a 7.5 plus the 1/8 gap. So if you remember, it's the 7.5 for the plank plus our gaps that we have here for the expansion contraction. So same thing, we can copy this. We can go here on the distance and we can type in 7.625. So that's our 7.5 for the plank plus the 1/8. And then we can do, instead of one direction, instead of both of them going up, we can make it so it's symmetric. One goes up and one goes below our middle plank. So here now we have one up, one down. We press OK, and it's a little hard to see there, but you have 3 different profiles now. You have your top, your middle, you have your bottom. And if we rotate, you could see how now that matches. So we didn't really have to do much math. All we did is we created the center rectangle. We used a coincident constraint to lock it in here, which defined the entire rectangle. Then we use a rectangular pattern to create the top and the bottom. So now we have everything we need for our left wall. We're going to go ahead and click Finish Sketch. And again, you know you have everything you need. And this is how you go back to our sketch. You can come down here to the bottom. This is our plane on the left, and this is our sketch. Remember, we didn't use our plane, but it's still there. And you can go ahead and suppress that if you want to, but for now, we're just going to leave it. I don't want to do anything with that. And here we're going to go to our sketch. And if you ever need to make another change, you go back to the sketch and click Edit Sketch. And that's one of the beauties of 3D modeling, is if we need to update anything, it's very quick to do it. If you're sketching on a piece of paper and you need to make an update, you have to redraw or grab an eraser. But here in 3D modeling, you can make changes quickly. And we'll see that at the end when I start making changes to this. Right now it's going to be 96 inches in length, but I'll see what it looks like when we change it to 40 inches, 32 inches, and you'll see how quickly it is to make a change. So here we're back in the sketch if we need to edit, and we don't. This is the beauty of parametric modeling. Everything's being driven by dimensions and everything. We can go ahead and just finish that sketch. And then now we can create our left and right wall. So here, if we click just on the edge, it says that that edge is 96 inches. It's 8 feet, which is good. So when we extrude, we're not going to extrude out to the left because that would make this longer than 96 inches. Plus, it would look weird. So we're going to extrude to the right. So we're going to go extrude. It's asking for our profiles. We're going to click the top, the middle, and the bottom. And in all 3D modeling, anytime you use the extrude or plat or whatever it's called, it's always going to give you the wrong direction first. That's inherent. Just go ahead and drag it the other way. And as you could see here, now you could see we can drag this all along here and we can make it any type of length that we want. But because it is a 2x8, we know we had the 7.5. So now we know that this, for the thickness, has to be 1.5 inches. So we type that in, we press OK, and you can see right here we have our left wall, and it is 1.5 inches in width. And you can come over here, you can click on Inspect. you can click on the left side, you could click on the right side of that edge and see there that it pops up at 1.5, and same thing over here in your menu, it shows 1.5. And just press escape, get out of it. So if you remember when we did the front wall, we took advantage of this geometry here for the plane. We took advantage of the geometry, used the plane to create our back wall. So what do you think we're going to do now? Of course, we're going to do that same exact thing, because why? Put down another sketch, do the rectangular pattern, draw all our profiles. Why do all that if you don't have to? Take advantage of the geometry that you have, which is our rule for today. And we're going to go to create. We're going to go to mirror again. And then we're going to select the body type, which our object type, which is bodies. And then we're going to click top, middle, bottom. We're going to click those three profiles and we're going to tell it, hey, we want you to mirror around a plane. Which plane do you want to use to mirror? And we're going to say this plane. Or we're going to see here, it's selecting the plane on the top left and we don't want that one. So we want to go ahead and hide those. And we want it to show planes that are in our current component. So here we just click that X for that. We're actually going to hide that. And then here we're going to click the mirror plane again, and boom. As you can see right there, you now have your top, middle, bottom. And again, we can walk through that. Here it's asking, okay, here's the mirror command, and we'll start again. If we go, now's a good time to save as well. So go ahead and hit save. Again, software is all crash and you don't want to lose your work. There's an auto save feature that happens if it crashes unexpectedly, but it doesn't always work, the auto recovery. So here we want to go to create mirror. Our mirror menu shows up here. We're going to click the top, the middle, and the bottom bodies. And you can see here body 1, body 2, body 3. So our left or right wall has body 1, body 2, body 3. Our front back wall component, if we click on there, it's got body 1 through body 6. When you're 3D modeling, every software, parametrically, every software has a menu, a feature tree just like this that you can read in order to look at features that you need to look at. So one of the things you're going to have to become comfortable with is reading that tree and being able to um, hide and unhide stuff that you need to. So here, right, if we go back and look at our left right wall, we're on body 1, body 2, body 3. We've selected those three objects. For the mirror, we're going to do a mirror plane. We're going to click this plane. And here you can see that's created new bodies. And now we'll get body 4, body 5, and body 6, where we just had body 1, body 2, and body 3. So here, that is it. We have our front and back walls, our left and our right. Now, remember I said that depending on what's activated, it'll show translucent versus solid. So right now, since we've activated our left right wall, those are solid. If we were to activate our front back wall, then those would be solid and the left right would be translucent. And if we activated the whole assembly, which is up here, and we just click this little button right there, you could see that now everything is brought into focus. So the reason that's done is because if you're working on the left right wall, you probably don't care too much about the front or back. Or if you had like 50 components in here, you wanted to see just one of them, you'd want to be able to hide all the other ones so that they wouldn't be blocking your view. So now we have our front, back, left, right wall. So now that that's done, we have, I'd say, 90% of the garden bed done. What's left is I'm going to call this an apron. So, yeah, we'll just call this an apron. So what's left is the apron, the top parts, which we're going to call 2x4s. So we have 2x8s for these planks, and then the apron is going to be a 2x4. If it's not an apron, somebody let me know in the comments what it's called. And so here we're going to have a 1/2 inch overhang. So let me just double check to make sure that that's what we're going to do. So I click on inspect, I click on this wall and this wall to make sure that indeed the distance between them is 1/2 inch. Again, that's what's so powerful about 3D modeling, being able to visually see what you want and then at the same time being able to inspect it, weigh it. When I weighed this earlier, it said it was 97.5 pounds. So I know that if I'm going to be designing this and building it, I know that the whole thing weighs 97 pounds. So if I'm going to be moving it, I know, okay, that's probably a 3-person lift, 2-person lift. I need help. It's going to be too heavy. Or if I want to make it lighter, I know now, okay, maybe I cut something off. Maybe instead of having it 24 1/8 of an inch in height, make it only 15 inches in height and see what the new weight would be. So here we're going to be making those skirts and our apron. And here we are going to take advantage of the geometry that we have as we've been doing this whole time. So same thing, we're going to create a new component. So we're going to go new component and we're going to type in front/back apron. Okay, so now here on the tree left side, you could see that we have our front and back apron part. And so if we go to our left, right, and activate that component, you see here that it has the feature tree on the bottom as or the feature list on the bottom. So here you can roll it back to wherever you want. If you grab this, left click, hold the left mouse and drag it back, it'll take you back to a time where all we had was nothing. And then if you bring it and push it forward one, you'll see, okay, it created the plane. Then after it created the plane, which is down here, it created our sketch. Okay, so now our sketch is there. After we created our sketch, then we created the wall. After we created the wall, then we did a mirror function, which you see down here, mirror, and then that created our other wall. So at any point, we can go back to our place in time. We can go back to the sketch. We can edit sketch and we can make a change to this. If we truly wanted to, we can change the geometry right now and then it would update the whole thing. So I'm just going to roll this to the end. I'm going to click over here, which rolls it to the end. And then this is our left right wall because they're solid. Remember that. Our front back wall is solid when we activate that. And then everything is solid when we activate the assembly. Okay, so here we're going to go back down to our front back apron and we're going to create and sketch our apron. And again, we could put a plane here, but we're not going to on this one. We're just going to draw on one of these faces. So either the left face, the back face, the right face, or the front face. I choose the front face because that's just the first one that we did. So we're going to click, now that we're in our component, let's activate it. And we did. And then we're going to choose this face right here. We're going to click on that and highlight it. So we're going to click create sketch. It's asking for a plane to sketch on. Well, not only is this a face, but it's also a plane by definition. So plane or planar face, we're going to click on that. And when we click on that, it brings us into a normal mode. So all we did, if I rotate this again, is all we did is we clicked on sketch. And then after that, we clicked on this face and then it put us in that normal mode. Now I am rotating out of it, but if we want to get back to it, you can just click the top and it'll bring you there. If you click the front, I'll bring you there. And so we're just going to click the top. Okay, so we said that these were 2x4s. So again, we're going to use rectangle. This whole thing is rectangle, and that's what's so crazy about it is it's not a bunch of complicated shapes. It's just rectangles, a bunch of them. And we're going to click 2-point rectangle, and we're going to just click in a random space again. So we're going to click there, and we're going to click there. And then we're going to use our dimension tool to bring us where we want to be. So right now, we want to make sure that we have a 1/2 inch overhang from here, this edge right here, to this bottom edge on our front apron piece. And this is a 2x4. So let's first do that. So instead of it being 4 inches in width, the 2x4 is just going to be 3.5 inches. So we changed that to 3.5. All we did was, let me go back. Let me make sure I capture that. We clicked on sketch dimension. We clicked on the top edge, clicked on the bottom edge, and then we clicked over here and did 3.5. And you always want your dimensions to be away from your geometry. Yeah, sometimes it's in here, but if you want to be professional, I mean, take your game to the next level, move it over to the left. It's just how a lot of people do it. It's how they do it in engineering. It's how they do it in some advanced woodworking. Just move your stuff over to the left. Okay, or down or below. If you notice every sketch that I've done, I've tried to clear it, or if I haven't, it's because I wasn't paying attention. So it's 3.5 inches, and we know that we want the 1 inch, the half-inch overhang, just a half inch. So we're just going to drag it up, and we're going to click sketch dimension, and we're going to click this edge, and this is the edge for our front wall, and we're going to click this bottom edge on our apron plank, and we're going to click there, and we're just going to drop it, and we said we wanted 1/2 inch. So now that we've done 1/2 inch, we've locked it down from top and bottom. If I delete that, you could see before we drop it, we can move anything up and down because we haven't locked it in this Y axis yet. So if we just click sketch dimension, this edge, and here, and do 0.5, 1/2 inch, then you could see that now we cannot move it up and down, but we still can move it left and right. And we just need to take care of that. So here we have our 1/2 inch overhang, and we have our dimension for 3.5, which is our width. And as you can see here, we need to give this a width as well. But rather than trying to calculate whatever 96, because if we have a 1/2 inch overhang for here, then we also need a 1/2 inch overhang for the left piece here to the left piece there. So rather than trying to decide, okay, we have 96 plus 1/2 inch on the left side, and then 96 plus 1/2 inch on the right side, we could dimension our plank like this. We have 94, we can do 96, which is, we know is the length from here to here, this edge, plus 1/2 inch overhang, plus another 1/2 inch overhang. We don't have time for all that. Why not just take advantage of existing geometry and do exactly this? We're going to click this point right here. We're going to click this edge right here, and we're going to put it down, and we're going to drop it right there, and we're going to do 1/2 inch. Because we know that we're going to have a 1/2 inch overhang all around. Why not just take advantage of this wall? Why do the math ourselves? And then over here on the left side, on the right side, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to drag this over here, and then we need to lock it because we could still move it in space, and we don't want to do that. Just like if we come over here on the left side, now if we try to drag it left and right, you can't do it. And that's why the line has also turned black. So this line is still a translucent blue. And we're going to do the same thing over here. We're going to click sketch dimension. We're going to click this edge, that point. We're going to click here. We're going to drop it and click 0 or type in 0.5. And now hit escape. Now you can't drag it there either. So you've created the front of the apron. We've locked it in space. We've taken advantage of that mirror plane because we're going to mirror this just like we did all the other ones. So same thing, we're going to go to create, mirror. As you can see, we're doing the same 5 functions every single sketch for something like this, very symmetric. Edge, left edge, bottom edge, right edge, top edge. So you have your edges of the profile that you want to mirror. You're going to click mirror line. And then here for the mirror line, before we were doing planes because we were doing it off of in 3D, right now we're in 2D. So for our mirror line, you can go over here and under the origin, you can click this drop down menu. And here you have up top, if you can see it, I know it's a little hard with my mouse right there, but you can see Z, Y, X. And also that's green, blue, red. If you pay close attention here, you can't see the blue line because it's into the page, but you could see the green line, which represents the y-axis, and you could see the red line, which represents the x-axis. So we want to mirror this profile about the x-axis. So here under mirror line on the tree, I can highlight over the X, and you could see here it gets created in the center of the page. So highlight over the X and press that. And now once we press the X, you could see that the back apron gets created up here. It's a little translucent, but once we press OK, you could see that now it's there. So if we change this geometry, it will change this geometry. So if we didn't want this to be 3.5, if we wanted it to be 8.5, this would change to 8.5 here, but it would also change this to 8.5 there. So we can control it in two directions or in two different places with just one dimension. Same thing. If we just wanted to have a 2-inch overhang instead of a half-inch overhang, I would zoom into this dimension instead of a half inch. Let me zoom out so you could see it. I would double click it and I would type in 2, and now it changes the overhang on the bottom and it changes the overhang on the top. So that's what's super powerful about this. But let's change it back so it makes sense. So 0.5 for our overhang. And then this is a 2x4, so we want to be 3.5, not 8.5. So when you want to change it, you just double click it and make it 3.5. That's what's so great. I can't stress that enough. Look how quickly we can make design changes. So when you have a customer, first you can charge them for the design work. If I were charging someone for this, I would easily charge $200 for it because it's a skill, it's engineering practice, it's design practice, and the software is not free. If you're using it at a large scale, then you're going to need to pay for it. So you need to make sure that you make that money back. And one of the ways you make some of that money back is by charging people to design. If you're building this garden bed for someone and they want to see what it looks like before you build it, design it in a software just like this, and you can go ahead and charge whatever, 50 bucks, let's say. And then when the next customer comes along, you can charge them another 50 bucks. If they want it to be a slightly different size, you could just come in here and make your changes. And so that's what's great about doing this. So now that we have our top, our and front and back planks, we're going to go here. And so we have the apron. So we're going to go ahead and extrude that. We're going to click extrude. We're going to select our profiles. So we're going to select this outer profile and that profile. Same thing over here. We're going to select this profile and we're going to drag it up. So there we can make it this tall if we wanted to, but again, it's just a 2x4. So it's going to be 1.5 inch thick. So distance is 1.5 inch. So now we have our front and our back planks. And as you can see, that just looks so nice. Again, we are in our component for the front and back. You can do the left and right, or you can go straight. And to go up and down the tree, just scroll the middle button up and down on your mouse. We can go and activate the assembly, which is our garden bed. And you can see you now have all of this. So that's what's really cool. And then let's go ahead and save it and create our last two pieces and be done. And our last two pieces, we don't have to do any measuring really. We just have to drop down. It should be just one dimension. And then we're going to extrude and we're going to take advantage of the existing geometry like we've been doing this whole time. And we're going to be done. So now that we have our front and back apron, we're going to do our left and right apron, which if we go back to the practice one, we're going to do this piece and that piece. So we're going to take advantage and we're going to sketch on this face, but we're going to create a new component. You don't have to for this since they're so similar, but just to get in the habit of practice is showing you guys. So we're going to call this left, right apron. Okay, so now we've got our left, right apron activated. Down here, you could see this little button is pressed automatically, and it has grayed out everything else. So now we're going to click on this face. We're going to take advantage of this one. On the other one, we take advantage of the front one. We're going to click that, create sketch. It automatically puts us in our normal view to that sketch. And it's a little hard to see here, but we're going to take advantage of this edge on the front plank. We're going to take advantage of this edge and this edge on the top plank. And you'll see exactly how we do it. So here you can go with a center rectangle again, but let's just try a 2-point. So 2-point rectangle, we're just going to drop it randomly in space. I don't always use the guides. I just drop it and worry about my constraints later. So we have our rectangle and we can still move it any which way we want, left and right or up and down, but we need to constrain that. So we're going to click on our coincident constraint again. We're going to click this point right there. We're going to click this point right there, and that constrains that. And as you can see, now it lines it up with this edge here on our plank so that they're all in line with each other. And then same thing, you're going to click this point down here. When you hover over it, you could see it. Let me just try to zoom in. You hover over it, you could see it right there. You click that. You still have the coincidence straight there. And you click right there. And now we have locked those two parts or those two lines in space. And all we can do is drag it left and right. We cannot drag this up and down anymore. Impossible. So that, if you already see right here, it's a low hard. So let me rotate. That is already giving us our overhang, which from here, this edge to this edge, we know is 1/2 inch overhang. So when we took advantage of the geometry that we already had existing, we didn't even have to measure that overhang. We just used our existing geometry to make it. And then it's a 2x4, right? So we know that the width from here to here has got to be 3.5 inch. So from here on the left to here on the right is 6.61. So we're going to change that to 3.5. Okay, so now we have our plane on the left here, and we're going to once again take advantage of our existing lines and planes and axes in order to mirror this part to this side. And so let me show you in 2 different ways how it's going to go, or we may just do one way and on another video do the second. So here, if we go to mirror, it's asking for objects to mirror. We're going to click that edge on the top, on the left, this edge on the bottom, and this edge on the right. So we have our entire profile selected. We're going to click mirror line. Remember, Y is the green line. And so we want to mirror this about the Y axis so that it can end up over here. So if we move over here, the mouse to our left for the feature tree, and then we click the Y, you can see it gets highlighted right there. If we just hover over it, we're going to click Y. And now once we click that, you see the little silhouette for our right apron piece right there. And you'll see it once we hit OK. And now the left and the right are created. And same thing, if we change this to 15, you would see that it mirrors it on the left side. And if we came up here and just pressed undo, then it would go back to 3.5. Okay, so we have created that. Now we're going to go ahead and click Finish Sketch. And so we have our 2 sketches on the left. We have our left apron sketch, profile, and on the right, we have our right apron profile. So we're going to take advantage of our existing planks. So let me go back to activate the assembly. When we do our extrude, we're going to take advantage of these faces, and we're going to use one of these faces and say when we do our extrude, instead of giving it a distance, we're just going to say extrude up to this face. That way they're on the same plane, and you'll see what I'm talking about. Because when we did our extrude here, we typed in 1.5, which is what this is. If you click on the edge, you see there it's 1.5. This time I just want to take advantage and say, hey, instead of saying 1.5, instead of having to worry about changing it, I just want you to be extruded to the same height as this one. So if we go back down to our left right apron, activate it, and go to extrude, we're going to click on the profiles. So we're going to click on this one, and that one on the left. And then on the right, we're going to click on this one. So, like I said, you can drag it up manually. You can type in 1.5 for the distance, but instead we're going to type for our extent type. We're going to do to object. Okay. So for our extend type, we're going to do to object, which we did, and it's asking for the object. We're going to say we want you to extend to the height of this face. And once we click this face, it's going to automatically extrude up to that face. And if we were to change this face by linking it to each other, it'll automatically update as well. So if we click here, you can see now that the height doesn't require a dimension, but instead it just requires a face. And then we click new body. We want to create new bodies and we press OK. So now this face is linked to this face automatically. So we don't have to worry about changing the left and right if we change the front and back. And I'll show you what that looks like. So first, before we make any changes, we just want to congratulate ourselves. Let's save and congratulate ourselves because we just finished a design for a garden bed. This is done. The only thing left to do to it would be to add some color to it, some material if you want. We're not going to do that in this video. I'll put that in a follow-up video. But this is done and it looks very nice. It looks exactly how the video did. I'll try to play it back right here. And congrats, guys. This is great. And like I said, you can charge someone for this. This is a engineering skill. So here I'll show you what happens if we update the height of the front and back, how it automatically, without us even having to go into the left and right apron, how that changes. So if we go here for our left and right and we activate that component, and I'm only activating it so that the tree isn't or the feature list isn't very long. For that, we did two things. We created our sketch and then we created our extrude. So if I right click the extrude and go to edit feature, we did 1.5 inch. Now, because the left and right apron are linked to the front and back apron, if we change this to 10.5 and press OK, I expect that when we activate our assembly, that our left and our right apron should also move up to 10.5 inch in height. So if we go here and activate, and here on our feature list, move this over to the right, all the way to the end, you could see that exactly what I thought would happen happened. Our left to right walls also moved. Now down here is almost every feature that we use in order to create our assembly. So if we go back to the left, you can hit the play button down here and see everything as it was created. So our front, our back, our planes, our sketch, our top, our bottom, all that's there. And if you drag it over to the right, you could see that. So same thing, if you wanted to, for your front and back apron, that extrude that we did is also down here. So we can go back to that space and time. If we take this bar here, move it over to the right, it'll get rid of our left and right walls because our left and right walls are over here. They happened after we created this, so they don't exist yet technically. We can drag it back to the right and bring them back, and you can see they're here on the tree. Or we can go back to the very first wall, which was just the front. And when we created the front wall, the back wall, that mirror didn't exist yet, but we can drag over here to the right and see, okay, this is what it looked like when we just had that. And then what else did it look like when we added more, when we added another plane, and then when we added another mirror? So you can go back to any part in time, any point in time where you created a feature and edit it. You can go back. You can go back to the very first feature when you had nothing, or you can go back one feature, or you can go towards the very end. So for us, we want to update this apron wall back to make it 1.5. So if we go to the feature that's listed front back apron, right click it, go to edit feature, and just make this 1.5 again. It'll update the front and back, which it just did right there. If I make it 17, it jumps up. If I make it 1.5, and then because we linked the left and right to it, it'll also move that. So the left and right have now been moved back down to 1.5 just by doing that. So that's really cool. So we're going to save one more time. As you do this, you're just going to get in the habit of saving. And I'm going to show you guys, now that we've done this, let's say we sent this out for our first customer and they're done. We built their stuff and we charged them $25 for this, right? Let's say the following week we have another customer come through and say, hey, you know what? This is, and you can measure anything on here. So you can measure from this wall. If you hit the inspect tool over to this wall and know that it's 96 inches, or you can measure from this wall over to this wall and know that's 36 inches. And when you want to get rid of that dimension, you can either click on them again or just left click in the white space and it resets it. Or you can click on that top of the apron to this bottom edge of the plank and know that the thing is 24.25 inch in height. So that to here, same thing, 24.25. Okay. Or you can rotate it around. You can do whatever. But let's say your second customer came through and said, hey, I don't have 8 feet worth of space in my yard. I only have 32 feet, or I only have 48 inches of space in my yard. Can you design me something where I only have a garden bed that's 48 inches in width and length? You could say, yeah, of course, 48 inches in length, no problem. That's going to be, you charge the first person $25. Maybe you only charge this person $15. And you come in here and you say, okay, I'll do it. I'll make the change. And then I'll send you the 3D model. And this is what's great. You can send them a screenshot of this. That way you guys are all looking at the same thing. And you get buy off from them and they feel more comfortable knowing what they're going to get at the end. And so you want to make this only be 48 inches in length. Okay. So you go into your first sketch in the tree right here. You can right click it. Oh, sorry, I'm in measure. So close out a measure. You can right click this. You can go to edit sketch. And the way we did this is we made everything. See, I left this up here unprofessional. The way we did this is we made everything linked to each other, right? Each time we built this, we made the back link to the front. We made the left link to the front. We made the left and the right off of a mirror. So with the right link to the left. So if you look at the way this was built, if we start from the going backwards, this right piece is linked to this left piece is linked to this back piece is linked to this front piece is linked to this front piece, and so on and so on. Everything is linked together. And the reason why we did that, and the reason why you got to love and respect parametric modeling, is because if my customer comes to me and says, hey, I need to make this 48 inches in length, I don't want the height to change, I don't want the width to change. You say, no problem. You go to Edit Sketch, you take this 96, you double click it. Let me do that. 96, double click, you change it to 48. You update this width, this length, so it's only 48. You click Finish Sketch. And with the way we designed it, money. Everything just updated. The width is now 48 inch here. We didn't change the depth of it at all. So that's still 36 inches. And the height didn't need to be changed. So because none of that stuff needed to be changed, you just gave them exactly what they needed in about 5 seconds. And you can charge them for that. And you can charge them what you feel is appropriate or not. But you just made money by making another click. Or if a customer comes to you and says, hey, I love those 4-inch beds that you made, garden beds, but now I want one that's 144 inches. I want one that's 12 feet in length. You can say no problem. You can type in 12, and let's go bold here and say 12 FT, and just put in 12 feet and click OK. And it converted that 12 feet to 144 inches. Ah, you guys may not have known about that trick. So, or your customer can say, hey, I need this to be 20 feet. And you say, no problem. You type in 20 FT, you click enter, you type enter, and now it changes that. And now you have a garden bed that is 20 feet long. And again, you can always just measure it and click this edge. And here it's 240 inches in length. So that you just can't put a price on as far as knowledge. Monetary, yes, but as far as knowledge, the ability to make changes. And the same thing, if I wanted to change the depth, if I wanted to make this instead of this be 36 inches, if I wanted it to be 48 inches, right? Everything is being driven off of that first plane that we created. So if you come down here to the feature tree and go back, you can, or feature list, to get the terminology right. So here, if you show that first plane, if we make this one big again, if you show that first plane, everything is being driven off of this plane as far as the depth. So instead of making this 18 inches off of this for your offset, because if we measure it and we click here and we click here, it's 18 inches. If we just change that to 24 inches so that it's a 48 inch depth box. So here, instead of, we want the depth of the box, instead of it being 36 inches like it was, we want it to be 48. We just do minus 24 because 48 divided by 2 is 24. We just enter that in, that moved the plane. And now if we go and click to the end, you could see that we now have a box that is 48 inches in width and depth, and the length of it 20 feet. Now, in a future video, I'll show you guys how to do configurations where you set stuff up and you just run with it, where you could have multiple different configurations and you just type it in and it'll make the change even quicker than we just did. But let's return this back to what it was, and you can always go back to your original. So you could either do undo, or you can just go to those features and edit them. So here, if we go back to our first plane, you just, oh, I'm still in measure. You can't do anything when you're in measure. So here, if we go back to that first plane and change that from 24 back to 18, so that our depth could be 36. Or if we didn't know, we could do 36 divided by 2. No, that's not going to work. Okay, we'll keep it simple. We'll do negative 18. So now our width, our depth of the box, sorry, I keep using those interchangeably, but our depth of the box is back to 36 inches because we changed that. And then we want to change this back to 96 inches and not have it be 246. So if we go back into our first sketch, which is down here, and again, we can go back to that point in time if we take this bar and drag it over here. As not to confuse ourselves, we can go up here and click show. And then you could see, okay, this has to be our first sketch. So you come down here, you right click and you go to edit sketch and you change this back to 8 feet or 96 inches. You could type in 96 inches, you could type in 8 feet. You change it back to there, it updates it, and then you finish the sketch. Now it updated that sketch, and because of parametric modeling, everything else should have been updated. And everything else got updated. We don't want to see this. So we'll click on it and we can click hide, show, and now that's gone. Same thing here. We can right click, you can click hide, you can press V and hide all these planes. You can hide this, you can hide the axes, you can hide all of that. You could hide this sketch. As you can see, our first sketch is still there and it's still showing. You can click hide. And then again, you can come over here, click the home button and save. Okay, guys, sorry, I almost forgot. We have the posts that we need to put in. I completely forgot about those. I'm talking about these posts that we have right here on the right, left. So there's 4 of them. We need to put them in. If we click on that, just activate the inside post. It's these posts that we need to put in. So let's go ahead and do that really quickly before we call it a day. And so here we're just going to roll the tree back because I want the aprons to kind of go last. So I'm going to roll the tree back to before the aprons were created, which are here. But I'm going to put in those posts. So we roll the tree back to before the aprons were created. Now we could put in our post. And that's what's another good feature is we need to put the post in. We forgot about it. I forgot about it. And so because of that, I can roll the history of the part back before we created the apron, and then we could put in our post. So we're going to assemble a new component. We're going to call it post. And then here our posts are highlighted. We're going to sketch on one of these faces. So we're just going to click this one here on the left. Then we're going to click create sketch. Once that sketch is created, we are going to grab our post, we're going to grab our 2-point rectangle for our post. We're going to zoom in. We're going to click on that edge and do that. And we're just going to create one post because we're going to mirror again. So here we created that. We can still move it up and down like that. So we want to lock that in. And we're going to make our posts 2x2s. So they're each going to be 1.5 inch in width and height. So 1.5. And here we're going to click this and we're going to do 1.5. Okay, perfect. So now we have a fully defined rectangle and we are going to mirror really quickly and we're going to mirror twice. Once about the Y axis, which is this green axis, and then once about the X axis. So here we go. We're going to click on create mirror, objects to create, this edge, this edge, and that edge. And it's asking for a mirror line. We're going to choose the Y axis. So we're going to highlight over the Y. You're going to see it in the silhouette there. On this, keep your eye right here on this side as I click the Y axis. Okay, so now that's there. Click OK. And now you have 2 posts. So we need to create the other 2 posts down here. So why not grab this post, and then mirror those against here to get our bottom post. So create mirror, objects to select, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then another object to select, 1, 2, 3, 4. So we select those 8 edges. And now we're going to mirror these two posts about the x-axis to get our two bottom posts down there. So mirror line will be, click on that and then hover over the X. You see how that gets highlighted. Over the x-axis, click down. And then now we have our post for the bottoms. Click OK. And then here we have our 4 posts. We're going to finish our sketch. Those are fully defined. And then we are going to extrude our posts down. And we're not going to give it a depth. We're just going to say we want to extrude our posts down to this space right here, or this space right here on the bottom, so that they go the entire length of the box. So here, if we go to extrude, it's going to ask for a profile. We're going to click profile 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then we're going to grab the arrow down. Now, as you see, we have 4 inches there, but we want to go the whole width. So we're going to change our extent type to to object. And then after we change it to object, we need to pick an object. So here, to object, it's asking for a face. We're just going to click this bottom face right there. And then it lines up our bottom face of our extrude with the bottom face of that plank, because that's what we told it to do. Click OK. And then now we have our 4 posts that are there. And in actuality, we could have designed our posts before we put in our 4 walls, or 2 left and right walls, but why do that? We know that when we build it, we're going to be building it in that order, but when we're designing it, doesn't necessarily have to be in the order which we're going to build it in. So now that that's there, we have our posts there, and we can activate. So now that our posts are done, we can go back to the assembly, activate that. See here in our feature list that we still have some features that we haven't gone to yet. And then we can bring back our top planks. Now that we did that, we have our complete build. So sorry about that. Now we're done. Now this is over. Thanks for tuning in. I know it's a very long video, like I said, but go ahead and try this if you guys can. Let me know down in the comments. If you ran into issues, I'm more than happy to help you with troubleshooting. And like I mentioned before, if you can do this in Fusion, it's the same way in Onshape, CATIA, SolidWorks, Solid Edge, Pro-E, all of them work the same, and you just learned a new skill. So great for you guys, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.